The Creation Care Scheme is all about looking at all areas of our household lives, which includes our money, how we use it, and what we do with it. And Rosie Venner is Money Makes Change Programme Manager for the Ecumenical Council for Corporate Responsibility, which is a charity helping individuals and churches think through those connections between our faith and our finances for a fairer, more sustainable world. Rosie, you've been incredibly patient, but now I'm going to pass it over to you. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks, Hannah. It's lovely to be here. It's great to hear everyone else. And it's great to be able to talk a little bit about money. And I'm so pleased to see that there are questions in the Creation Care Scheme about finance. I think we can all see that throughout Scripture, there's this importance of acting justly with money, because at the heart of it, money is about relationships, it's about community, and those decisions that we make as individuals or as households with our finances, they link us to our global neighbours and they have an impact on the earth. I'm sure that many of you think carefully about where you spend money and about where you give money, giving to charities and campaigns that are changing the world for the better. But what I want to encourage you to think about tonight is what about the money that we don't give away, and what about the money that we're not spending right now? The money in your bank accounts, your pension if you have one, and any savings or investments that you might have now or in the future. We really need to think about what that money is doing too. I think it's not always easy to see that connection. It's not as tangible as getting out in your garden and making it more wildlife friendly and all the brilliant things that Lydia's been speaking about, but it can be a really powerful tool that we can use and encourage other people to think about it too. Because that money that's in our banks, in our pensions and in investments, if we have them, is shaping the world around us. And it's financing companies, it's shaping the way that the world is changing, and it's shaping the future. So we do need to care about it. And I think there are three things that we can do to care for creation with our finances. And I'm just going to summarize it like this. We can seek to avoid harm, we can embrace things that are good, and we can engage for positive change. And I want us to just take a little bit of a look at bank accounts first. So bank accounts are using your money, whether you know it or not, to loan to or invest in businesses around the world. That might be a brilliant social enterprise in your local community, but it could also be a company that is building a new oil pipeline. And it probably doesn't come as a surprise to many of you who are involved in climate campaigning that the UK banks are still putting vast amounts of finance into fossil fuel companies. So what can we do? A very simple step you can take, and you may have done this already, is to explore switching to an ethical bank account. Ethical consumers research is very helpful, and the three that they recommend at the moment that come at the top of their ratings is Triodos, Nationwide and the Cooperative Bank. So that might be a step that you would want to take. If you're not sure about the bank that you're with, there's a really excellent tool called Bank Green, which has just been launched, and you simply go there and you put your bank in and it will tell you something about your bank's climate policies and suggest some alternatives that you might want to consider. I think it's something we can put off doing things about, but it's actually very easy to switch your bank accounts. The current account switch service makes it very simple. And if you are planning to switch, just coming back to that, what the good stuff we've heard about campaigning and speaking out, it's really important that you tell your old bank why you are leaving. Don't just disappear, tell them why you're concerned, and they need to hear from their customers. Now, a quick look about pensions. Pensions are big money. There's £2.6 trillion in UK pensions. I really find it hard to get my head around that number, £2.6 trillion. And it can feel quite a daunting thing, I think, to engage with. I think it's an area that even if we're really active in creation care, we might not have considered the ethics of our pension. And we shy away from talking about it because it's about money. I rarely hear pensions talked about in church. I wonder if you've ever had a conversation or ever heard pensions mentioned in a sermon. But for many of us, it's the biggest investment decision that we'll ever make in our lives, and it's shaping the world as it's shaping the world now. So I think it really needs to come into our conversations about stewardship. And because it's not talked about, it's forgotten about, and we might find that our values, the things that we care about, are at odds with how our pension is invested. So the vast majority of people, they stay with the fund that they're first put in when they're automatically enrolled, and that's what we would call the default fund. And it will be most likely be invested in the FTSE 100, and you'll see some of the logos there, like Shell and BP. The organisation's share action says it's possible that over 10% of the average pension is invested in fossil fuel companies. So choosing a sustainable pension and looking to see if there's an ethical fund that you can move your pension into, that's a really important step you can take. If that's not an option for you, maybe you're already drawing your pension or you're yet to have a pension, there's still lots of campaign actions that you can take. You can push pension providers to sign up to net zero commitments. And the more of us that are talking to pension providers about this, the more of us that can make sure that ethical, climate-friendly pensions are the defaults and not the alternative that only a few people put their money into, that's really going to make a significant difference. And finally, a quick word on investments. This is a really huge topic, and it's not something I'm going to attempt to cover in any great detail now. I'm also not a financial advisor, so the things that I mention here, they're not recommendations, but they just might be things that you want to explore further. So whether you have £50 to invest or you've got a larger sum of money, it's really worth asking those the following questions, which kind of go back to those different approaches that I mentioned at the beginning. What do I want to avoid? You know, what do I want to divest from, move money away from? And those of you who've been involved in the church divestment movement will be familiar with that. Where do I want to engage? If you're a shareholder, you can be involved in shareholder action. You can hold companies to accounts. And thirdly, what do I want to embrace? Where could I invest in businesses that are really good for society and the planet? And I've just put a couple of examples here. This is what's often known as impact investing. Energize Africa invests in companies providing home solar energy access to communities in Africa. You can invest as little as £50 with them. You don't need a lot of money. And the Big Exchange is a new set of funds which has been set up by the people behind the Big Issue. That's a more traditional kind of setup. It has funds that you can invest in, and those companies are screened and analysed to make sure that they positively impact people and the planet, and they're linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. So you can know if you're putting your money in that fund, it's helping to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And as I said, there's lots of options out there. You might want to do your own research and maybe talk to an ethical financial advisor who understands about the things that you care about and shares your values. So that was just a whistle-stop tour of banks, pensions and investments. If you're already taking action with your finances, I urge you to share what you are doing with others and get others involved. Talk to people in your church, in your household, in your community, and let's just grow the movement of people who are making those connections between their faith and their finances. If this is a new area for you, then be encouraged, take some small steps. I think it's a lot easier when we journey together and share what we are learning with each other. The world of finance can feel pretty complex and inaccessible, and I think that's why it's an area of our discipleship that we really struggle sometimes to take action on. But the work that we're doing through the Money Makes Change programme, and also brilliantly through Creation Care, is making it about looking at those really practical actions you can take. So if you do want to have these kind of conversations in your church and make it easier to talk about money and make that connection with caring for creation, then do have a look at our resources, or invite me to come and talk or to lead a workshop. I think next time you see your bank statement or your pension statement come into your inbox or through your letterbox, just take a moment to think about what action you could take to care for creation through your finances.